It is my delight and pleasure to be here with you this morning on this beautiful Sunday morning of Labor Day weekend. I do thank you for your invitation to worship with you this morning and for your kind and generous and gracious hospitality that I've received this morning. The gospel reading this morning is taken from the Gospel of Luke, chapter 10, verses 38 through 42. Hear the word of God. Now, as Jesus and the disciples went on their way, they entered a village, and a woman named Martha received Jesus into her house. And she had a sister called Mary, who sat at the Lord's feet and listened to his teachings. But Martha was distracted with much serving, and she went to him and said, "Lord, do you not care that my sister has left me all the work to do alone? Tell her then to help me." But the Lord answered her, "Martha, Martha, you are anxious and troubled about many things. One thing is needful. Mary has chosen the good portion, which shall not be taken away from her." This is the word of the Lord. Thanks be to God. It's your parents' 40th wedding anniversary, and your siblings and their families and your parents' friends are all coming over to your house for a celebration. Before they arrive, you spend a day and a half disinfecting the toilets and scrubbing the tile floor, scratching off with your fingernail a string of melted cheese underneath the microwave, and swiffering the puppies of dog fur from under the beds. Just as you locate all the dishes and silverware that you own, making sure that you have at least one napkin for each person, and checking to see that the flowers on the table are just right, the doorbell rings. It's your sister and her family. Finally, some help, you think to yourself, as you point your sister toward the oven. You've already warmed it up for her. After you greet them, you get lost again in peeling the hot potatoes for the salad, trying not to burn your fingers while at the same time trying to keep the cool perspiration collecting on your brow from dripping into the bowl and mixing with the mayonnaise. When you start to smell the charred chicken, you turn to let your sister know that her casserole is done. And there she is at the table, chit-chatting with Aunt Hilda. Cheeks flushed and feet aching, your face contorts with annoyance as you bend to take the casserole out of the oven yourself, muttering, "Could use a little help over here." Balancing getting things done and spending time with loved ones is indeed tricky business, and oftentimes both are good options. Most of us live harried lives, working full-time perhaps, attending to our spouses, running children around to a multitude of activities, caring for aging parents, and trying faithfully to keep in touch with family and friends. Often our schedules are full of noble endeavors, work, and activities that are meaningful and vital for the life of our community. One of the demands of an overflowing schedule is that activities need to be prioritized. Some choices come high on the list, while others simply must wait. We just can't do it all at once. Sometimes even priorities have to be shuffled at the last minute to meet needs. The account of Martha and Mary illustrates the practice of saying yes to the prioritization of one choice while needing to say no to another, when both choices are good options. As Jesus and his disciples travel from one place to another along the journey to Jerusalem, he stops at his friend's home in Bethany. There, Martha, the hostess, receives Jesus at her home for a meal. While Martha scurries around preparing the meal, Mary, her sister, is content to sit at Jesus' feet, listening to the word. Martha is not comfortable with Mary's approach to Jesus' visit, since she could use another hand in the kitchen. Resentful, she requests Jesus' aid. "Lord, don't you care that my sister has left me to do all the work by myself? Tell her to help me." But as is often the case when Jesus is asked to settle a dispute, he is stubborn, refusing to side with the one who asks that things be decided in a particular way. Instead, Jesus questions Martha not because of her activity, but because of her attitude. "Martha, you are worried and distracted by many things." By comparing what she is doing to what Mary is doing, she has injected unnecessary anxiety into the visit. According to Jesus, only one thing is needed. With this, Jesus sets priorities. Mary has chosen the better part, which will not be taken away from her. This passage is not solely about women. Its point is not that women can get too caught up in the busy work of keeping the home. What Jesus says to Martha about Mary would likely be equally true if Mary were male or even a child. That two women dominate the story would have been shocking in the first century context, when men often dismissed women as marginal. But the account makes a point about all disciples. The point is not that activity like Martha's is bad. The choice Jesus discusses with Martha is between something that is good and something that is even better. Life is full of tough choices between two or more good options. And here Jesus stresses the relative merits of good activity. Such choices are often the most difficult and the most anxiety-filled. Jesus commends Mary's attentiveness to the word. Jesus is not so much condemning Martha's activity as commending Mary's. He is affirming that her priorities are in order. As Martha prepares the feast, Mary ingests the bread of life in their midst. This meal will last forever.